It occurs to me that I give an awful lot of studio advice, and yet I don't really take anybody inside my studio to show them what I have going. It's not like it's some kind of closely guarded secret, so I'm going to show you both my studios, starting with my home studio, and exactly what I've got going in there. This is my home studio, and I'm just going to give you a quick 360 of the room, and then I'll break it down into each one of its pieces. This is primarily the control room area, and in the corner of the room I've got the recording space, what some people would call a booth. I don't really consider it a true booth, and I'll get into that in just a moment. I'm going to start with the acoustic treatment in the control room area. These panels are from GIK. Comparable to ATS. Both of them are right in the same ballpark. I chose GIK. Either one is great. I've got standard absorption panels and bass traps placed around the room. I've also got some carefully placed Auralex panels, and these guys, they're not foam. They're a dense recycled fabric, and they do the job for what I need them for. The Auralex is just a little spot treatment here and there. The panels, the larger GIK panels, are doing 90-95% of the work in here. The booth, or recording space more accurately, is made up of clear sonic panels. And the reason I can get away with that in this apartment is because I'm living in a 100-plus-year-old department store. And underneath me, 2-foot thick concrete. Above me, a couple feet of concrete, and no neighbors. My nearest outside wall in this direction is about 40 feet away. My nearest outside wall in the other direction is a couple 100 feet away. I have no neighbors on this side or this side. And up here, there is no neighbor on this side either. So I'm completely insulated and surrounded by cement. So I can get away with just this simple fiberglass panel here, because all I need is reflection control. This room, it's got high ceilings, and it's like an echo chamber when it's not treated. And even when it is treated, it's not really treated enough for voice. I like to keep my recording space kind of minimalistic. So I've got my water bottles, and I've got a set of cans in here, nothing to sit on. I've got a tablet to read from, and 2 mics, whichever one is going to suit the project better. The tablet, nice and small, doesn't make a lot of reflections, and it's still plenty big enough for me to read. The first mic here on the right is the Sennheiser 416 shotgun mic, or Sennheiser MKH 416 P48 specifically. It's sitting in an enhanced audio M600 mount, and the pop filter is a Hook Studios 842S Plus, and I highly recommend it if you've got a 416. It's just outstanding. The Neumann TLM 103, it's just behind a typical Stedman pop filter, and I use it for less of what I do. I'm liking it more and more as I get more accustomed to it and have gotten it more dialed in. But the 416 is my go-to for most things. Each one of these has a unique processing chain, which I will go through next. Starting with the 416, it's running through the John Hardy M1 preamp. Love it. It's one of my favorite preamps in the world, if not my favorite. Absolutely perfect match with the 416 and many other mics. From there, I have it going into an SSL 611 dyne unit. It's a dynamics processor. It has compression and expansion. So I don't like to hear myself breathe when I step 2 feet away from the mic. The expansion helps keep that out. It also helps keep down any noise from my clothing moving. Once it passes through those, and I'm just breathing on it. I'm not compressing it heavily. I'm not gating it heavily. I'm just breathing on it with that unit to get some of that SSL character into it. That's followed by the UBK Cush Electra, which is a parametric EQ. It's got its own flavor. It narrows the more you crank it up or down, which is unique. I'm using it pretty wide. I've got a little bit of a high pass filter going. followed by just a little bit of corrective EQ. This is all subtractive. There's no additive EQ being used on this unit. And on the high end, I've backed that off quite a little bit. And the reason for that is because I like to bring it back with the mag in the next step. The mag has this air band, which is a very high shelf, and it's very linear. It's very sweet sounding, and so I take a little out here and bring it back here, so it balances out, but at the same time it imparts some of that character and some of the extra air from the mag, which is really, really nice. But it's more controlled because I take some out before it goes into there. I also touch up the low end just a tiny little bit here, kind of for the same reason. I've backed off it a little bit with the Cush, and I bring just a tiny little bit of it back using the mag EQ2. The Neumann TLM 103 starts over here with the Rupert Neve Designs 511 module. This is based on the Portico preamp, and it's a really, really great match for that mic, which is a mic I've found to be difficult to find a good pre for. A lot of preamps have like a little ring because of frequency overshoot, working with transformers. This is not a transformer design, it's a transformer-like design, something unique to Rupert Neve, and it just works beautifully with that mic. I've got a little bit of a high-pass filter going, and I have the silk circuit engaged, which gives it just a tiny hint of vintage vibe. Next to that, I've got the Drummer DS101. It's a noise gate, same thing. I don't need somebody to hear me breathing if I'm standing at the back of the booth, or if I move a toe while I'm in between takes. That'll take care of that. The Cush Clariphonic is next, and this is a really interesting choice with this mic because the Clariphonic is a boost only, high only EQ. So it only deals with the upper mid-range and the highs on an already shrill mic, but it just works beautifully with the 103. It's the most bizarre thing, but it brings out sweetness and life and crispness without making it difficult to listen to at all. It actually somehow softens the highs, which is bizarre to me, but it works. I follow everything up with the Elysia M-Pressor, which I absolutely love. It's difficult to dial in. It's a very, very modern sounding compressor. It took me a while to get it right, but now that I have it, I love it. It also is just breathing on the signal the same way the SSL does. Interesting contrast here. In this particular chain, I have the compressor running post EQ. In the previous chain, I have the compressor running pre-EQ, and that comes after a lot of experimentation. Other gear in the rack, I'm using the Fredenstein Bento 10D chassis to house the 500 series modules, which is really cool. It cleans up the wiring because it can chain one module to the next without any wiring. Love that. On the other side of the rack, I've got my power conditioner and a power distributor, both from Furman, and the RME UFX, which is tremendous. My monitoring is done with the Focal Solo 6 BE monitors. Love them. And headphones in all areas are the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pro. I prefer the 250 ohm version. I use that everywhere except in my travel rig, where I use the 80 ohm version because I have trouble driving them. I'm using a Windows computer. I know, it's scary, right? I use a Mac in my other studio. It's just for recording. I don't do a ton of production from this machine. I do some, but it's mostly cranking out auditions and doing it efficiently in here. That is my home studio. Tomorrow, it's going to be tacked onto this video, but I'm gonna show you my office studio, which is directly across the street. It's about a 1-minute walk from here. I go down 8 floors, cross the street, and go up 6 floors, and I'm there. So I will take you there tomorrow. This is MS Communications Studio 654. This is where I spend my days and do the majority of my sessions just simply out of convenience. All this stuff on the wall here, exciting as it looks, is a museum, and I would love to get this cut off. I'm actually working on that right now and just having an open desk space there. I'd also like to replace the 003 with a nice, clean, modern rack mount multi-channel interface. I use Pro Tools in here primarily. 98% of the work is done on Pro Tools. I do have Audition available. I use that as a sketch pad or to record something quick if I don't want to close out of my Pro Tools session that I have going. The console is just a Harris BMX digital board. I can take it or leave it. There is no processing in here, no hardware processing. I've gone entirely in the box. I do most of the processing in here with the Waves Renaissance channel. And for preamps, I opted for just the onboard pre's because I hated what they had in here before. They had Aphex 230s and channels in here before for the mics. I don't care for those at all. As far as monitors, the Avantone cubes, which I never use unless I really need to double or triple check something. Almost all of it is done with the JBL 12-inch three-ways, the 4412As, I believe, is the model on those. Same headphones as home, the Beyer DT770 Pros. Also the same drink holder. Got to keep consistent. Mic-wise, Sennheiser 416, same as the home studio. It's got the exact same Hook Studios 842S Plus version on it, and I'll comment on the shock mount here. This is made by Rycote. It's actually branded Rode though. It's the Rode SM4R, and it works really well for the 416. I like it a lot, and because it's branded Rode instead of Rycote, it's I think under $50. It's not an expensive piece, and I'm really very happy with it. In the guest positions, I chose the SE 2200. This was after pretty extensive testing, and these are just perfect for this environment. They behave like a less refined version of my Neumann TLM 103. I don't have those in there for me. I have those in there for when I have guests come in to record, and they make my life easier than the mics I had previously in that position, which were the Shure SM7B. I've got a few other mics in here. Got a MicTech MK300 down here, and a preamp that's not in use, the Focusrite ISA1. Thought about putting it back in use. I'm not at that point right now. It's just not a priority for me. And that's pretty much all there is to Studio 654. It's a lot simpler because I do so much in the box. I do have ISDN here. That, however, is kept on another floor, which does get kind of inconvenient from time to time, but it works fine. That's why I do my ISDN sessions from here. I don't have ISDN at home. And that kind of concludes everything I've got with both of my studios. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm glad to answer. Like I said, no big secret here. I'm glad to share.